Good morning, everybody. First, I want to make sure that you can all hear us out there. If some of the attendees there are able to drop me a line in the questions box or the chat box, which you should find in on the right of your screen in the GoToMeeting panel, to let me know that you can hear us, that would be great. Looks like people can hear us. Fabulous. Thanks for helping me out there. Got too many windows open. Here we go. I want to make everybody aware that if you've dialed in by a phone, particularly a landline, when we play the recordings of staff presentations, you may be prompted to use the audio. If you have a device, if you called in on a landline, it may bump you out of the meeting. We've discovered that some phones just aren't able to support the recording content from the meeting. So if you're able to connect using a device and to connect through the GoToWebinar app, that is your best option for a great user experience on the other end. We're going to start the meeting with presentation of awards, followed by staff reports, and then the board will take up its prepared agenda and conclude with new business. During the formal agenda of the business meeting, there is a handout available. If you click the handouts tab, you can download the agenda there for viewing during the meeting. It'll also be on screen. The meeting will be recorded, and we expect that it should be uploaded to the Game Commission's YouTube channel early next week. You will also get an email with a link to the recording early next week as well. And with that, I think we will get started with the first presentation of awards. Here we go. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. We're now going to start with the awards.
Good morning. I'm Chuck Lincoln, Law Enforcement Supervisor from the Southeast Region. This morning, I'd like to read a nomination for Matthew P. Teehan for a Distinguished Service Award. Warden Teehan graduated from the Ross Leffler School of Conservation in March of 1999. After graduation, Matt was assigned to Chester County, where he served until 2001, when he transferred to Venango County in the Northwest Region. In March of 2004, Officer Teehan returned to the Southeast Region and was assigned to Lehigh County. In 2008, he transferred from Lehigh County to Berks County, where he currently serves. Berks County has 3 districts, of which each district covers approximately 290 square miles. Matt is assigned to District 6062, which is in northeastern Berks County. This area has a very diverse population from just outside of the city of Reading to rural Albany Township and the Blue Mountain. The district has approximately 150,000 people in 15 townships out of an estimated 421,100 people in the county. Matt covers several state game lands, including state game lands 106, 182, 315, and Lake Onalani, which is a co-op property covering about 3,100 acres, all totaled about 13,000 acres. There are many public access properties also within this district. During Matt's tenure with the Game Commission, and especially while assigned to the Southeast Region, Matt has consistently been a leader. He excels in law enforcement and is usually in the top 5 in the state as far as cases. With that being said, Matt is a fair and judicious officer in dealing with violations and quite often cuts breaks and tries to educate people as well as cite them for their violations. Warden Teehan has an active deputy program, and although he is down to 3 deputies, they are all very active and well trained in all aspects of commission responsibilities. Matt holds regular deputy meetings for not only his deputies, but invites deputies from other districts to participate in the training. For the past 6 or 8 years, Matt has taken it upon himself to provide additional firearms training for wardens and deputies alike. He became familiar with the Viking Tactics 1.5 firearms training program, which is a combat shooting platform, and has been, with the approval and guidance of myself and other firearms instructors, providing this training course many times throughout the year for officers and deputies. This course and part of it is now being used in our training academy, including the 9-hole barricade. All this due to Matt's drive to improve and not only to be a better trained officer himself, but to better train other officers as well. Warden Teehan was a defensive tactics instructor for many years, and when we switched to the new CQD training, Matt volunteered to instruct that as well. Warden Teehan is a very good instructor, and you can tell by the way he instructs that he enjoys and cares about what he is teaching. He is very dedicated to the job and to instructing other wardens and deputies, and generally cares about what he is teaching. Warden Teehan is involved in many other areas as well. Matt became one of the first wardens to become interested in and certified in man tracking, and took training on his own before the commission started the woodland tracking team, for which he is a member. Matt excels in other areas as well. His teaching skills come out here as he assists other wardens in learning the skills, teaching tracking at RLSC to the cadets, and has numerous deputy training sessions on tracking, and he, along with other members of the tracking team, have provided training to local PDs, special response teams, individual officers, and even the Pennsylvania National Guard. For assisting the Guard, Matt and others were schooled in military tactical combat casualty care, and again, Warden Teehan brought that back and has taught it to many officers in the Game Commission and other departments. Officer Teehan was a paramedic prior to coming on with the Game Commission, and he is now the team medic for the Woodland Tracking Team. Matt has gone above and beyond time after time to assist and bring favorable light on the Game Commission by attending and providing training. Matt is also very involved in assisting other officers, everything from writing citations to serving warrants. Matt is well coursed in serving both arrest warrants and search warrants, and is usually involved with several of them in the region, whether it's in his district or someone else's. He is very thorough and meticulous when serving warrants, and has everything pre-planned so that the almost routine in the way he serves the warrant. Warden Teehan is most likely the officer the other wardens go to if they have questions and seek out his advice in handling situations. He has been a field training officer for most of his career and does a great job of it. Officer Teehan is always willing and ready to assist other officers and regional staff with accomplishing the mission, no matter what it is. He has been very invaluable to me in a lot of what I do, whether it's getting ready for training or moving or relocating things, including bear traps and other equipment. Matt is always offering to assist. Warden Teehan also offers to go on evidence storage and handling class that I could not attend, and then offered to do and does assist with evidence storage, handling, collection, recording it at the regional office. He even assists cleaning up around the regional office and clearing out the evidence cage and other areas as needed. Warden Teehan has been working for the agency for a long time and has kept up a great work ethic this whole time. He enjoys the law enforcement and training areas of his jobs more than some other areas and aspects, but he does a great job. He does it well and exceeds at it. He is very compassionate about the training that he does for himself and others, and takes it very seriously, and it shows when he's teaching, when he makes the training more realistic, serious, and enjoyable for the students. His training, dedication, experience, and knowledge are sought by other officers, and his opinions and suggestions are greatly appreciated, not only by fellow officers, but by supervisors as well. Matt has continuously assisted me in times when I was swamped and had other things going on. Matt jumped in and took over wherever I needed, and sometimes even when not necessarily needed, but just helped out. For these reasons and many more, I would like to nominate State Game Warden Matt Teehan, Distinguished Service Award. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. I'm Deana Vance, the Director for the Bureau of Automated Technology Services. I'm very proud and excited to announce the Governor's Award for Excellence has been awarded to a team of 8 Game Commission employees this year. Governor Tom Wolf has recognized their work to give our state bird, the ruffed grouse, a better chance to recover from dramatic population declines caused by West Nile virus. This award is a prestigious and competitive program that recognizes Commonwealth employees for exemplary job performance that reflects initiative, leadership, innovation, and outstanding public service. These 8 employees collaborated on the Grouse Priority Area Sighting Tool, which combines cutting-edge GIS analysis with the Game Commission's wildlife research and habitat management information to identify areas where grouse populations are likely to recover best. Such knowledge is crucial in deciding where work for grouse should be focused. While grouse will benefit from projects to improve grouse habitat, if West Nile virus risk to grouse remains high in that area, a project's benefit to the grouse will be limited by disease. By considering all available data, the tool can be used by both public and private landowners to select the areas where habitat projects for grouse are likely to do the most good. I speak for our entire agency in expressing our pride and gratitude for the fine work you've done with this project. Receiving the awards are biologists Lisa Williams, Clayton Lutz, and Timothy Hoppe, geospatial professionals Robert Blystone, Jeremy Diel, and Daniel Jones, Wildlife Habitat Management Program Chief Scott Baer, and Forest Program Manager David Gustafson. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Matthew Schnoop, Bureau Director for Wildlife Management Bureau. The Game Commission and Rough Grouse biologist Lisa Williams received the AFWA's Ernest Thompson Seton Award. This award is given to the state, provincial, or federal agency which has best promoted public awareness of the need to support the science and practice of wildlife management. A companion award was just presented to the individual deemed by the agency as the person most responsible for its successful and award-winning program. Lisa has served as the Game Commission's grouse, woodcock, and webless migratory game bird biologist since 2010. She was the first researcher to identify the connection between grouse population trends and West Nile virus. Although loss of young forest habitat has been and continues to be the driving factor in long-term population declines of grouse and other species, Lisa used a combination of laboratory and field research to demonstrate that severity of West Nile virus from year to year is also an important influence on grouse populations, with sharp declines in sightings and flush rates following major West Nile virus outbreak. The Game Commission has built on its research by applying the results to grouse harvest and habitat management, and communicating the science to constituents has been a crucial in gaining support for these management actions. A current focus for Lisa and other Game Commission staff is identifying areas on the landscape where virus risk is lower and where limited resources can be applied with the greatest benefit to grouse populations. This innovative approach to habitat management is being recognized in its own right with one other award that was just announced today. Lisa would be the first to point out that conducting and applying cutting-edge grouse science is a team effort. Many staff in the Game Commission, our partners in other natural resource agencies, and nonprofit organizations in the Commonwealth's grouse hunters have all made vital contributions. However, none of these advancements in conservation would have been possible without her initiative, leadership, and dedication. This combination of agency-wide teamwork and individual excellence is a perfect example of what the Ernest Thompson Seton Award is designed to recognize. As Director of the Bureau of Wildlife Management, I am proud to see the Game Commission's applied science being acknowledged with this prestigious award, and I especially congratulate Lisa on being highlighted for her outstanding contributions. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Steve Smith with the Bureau of Information and Education. The Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies recognized 11 individuals, 3 state agencies, and 1 private landowner for their dedication to advancing fish and wildlife conservation at the association's annual award ceremony held virtually on September 14th, 2020. This year's recipient of the Stephen Kellert Award is the Wildlife on Wi-Fi program developed by staff from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. the award recognizes the program's outstanding service in advancing connections between humans and the natural world to all peoples in a diverse and inclusive manner. Wildlife on Wi-Fi seeks to connect Pennsylvania residents to their state's wildlife from anywhere. To achieve this, Wildlife on Wi-Fi provides innovative online learning opportunities, virtual lessons, and educational resources about wildlife and its conservation. Wildlife on Wi-Fi was designed during the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders and the state school closures to ensure the agency continued meeting its strategic objective of serving the Pennsylvania public and providing educational services. Since April 20th, Wildlife on Wi-Fi has registered over 40,000 engagements and received widespread local and state attention. The Wildlife on Wi-Fi team was successful because they involved a diversity of members from regions and the Bureaus of Wildlife Management, Marketing, and Information and Education who came together to collaborate on this project. Team members include Jeremy Banfield, Courtney Colley, Crescinda Corbin, Lauren Ferreri, Tracy Graziano, Tyler Hawk, Tom Kellert, Travis Lau, Dan Lynch, Mandy Marconi, Lori Neely Mitchell, Joe Monfort, Dan Mummert, Dustin Stoner, Dave Till, and Bill Williams. This concludes the award ceremony presentation for today's meeting.
On behalf of the entire Board of Commissioners, we'd like to once again congratulate all of the award winners. Thank you for your hard work, dedication, continued support to the Game Commission. At this time, we'll move on to the staff reports.
Sure, and our first staff report is going to be from Dr. Salvo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Andrea Salvo. I'm the wildlife vet with the Pennsylvania Game Commission, specifically the Bureau of Wildlife Management, and I am here today to talk to you about some proposed revisions to Regulation 137.34. I'm going to briefly review how the regulation has historically been singularly focused and how updating the language would address a wider range of wildlife diseases. I'll talk about how I came upon this, and then we'll talk about who it could potentially impact. So very briefly, as it's currently written, 137.34, chronic wasting disease and emergency authority of director is just as it reads, singularly focused on chronic wasting disease. And it sets forth the legal footing for the executive director to issue executive orders that mitigate risk factors, determine prevalence, and determine the geographic distribution of that disease. It does a great job at that, no question about it. And it sets the stage for 137.35, which is chronic wasting disease restrictions, which Andrea Korman will talk about in much greater detail in a little bit. But from a comprehensive point of view, the scope is far too narrow, and we're really missing out on the ability to provide us with a nice foundation and firmer legal footing to address a broad number of wildlife diseases that potentially threaten Pennsylvania wildlife. So I thought it would be really appropriate to kind of give you an overview of how I came upon this and what was the impetus behind us providing some proposed revisions to this regulation. And it was rabbit hemorrhagic disease. So both Emily Boyd, the small game mammal biologist, and myself were well aware of the outbreak when it first appeared in late March, early April in Arizona and New Mexico. And to date, it's spread to 7 states, and it's causing some mass mortality events in both wild and domestic lagomorphs in those 7 states. So this is on our radar. It is not in Pennsylvania yet, but it is something that we are keeping an eye on. And in doing so, we realize that the regulation as it's currently written is way too narrow-minded. So just to provide a brief history of kind of where we sit today with rabbit hemorrhagic disease. So as I said, in 2020, it was detected for the first time in free-ranging wild hares or rabbits in the United States. It's actually considered a notifiable foreign animal disease and is a really serious threat to both domestic and wild lagomorph populations. The virus that's responsible for the current outbreak is RHD virus serotype 2 or RHDV2. And there have been previous detections of that virus in the United States, but they were all limited to domestic and feral rabbits. And the current strain circulating in Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, and Utah is unique and unrelated to those previous detections. And they still haven't identified the source of this current outbreak. I will say, though, that RHD has previously been in Pennsylvania, but it was RHDV1, so virus serotype 1, and it was detected in 2018. And they didn't find a smoking gun, but officials believe that a chef who owned the infected domestic rabbits had imported and handled infected rabbit meat from France. And, you know, since its first characterization in domestic and wild rabbits in France in 2010, different strains of RHD virus have circulated around the world, throughout Europe, Australia, Africa, New Zealand, and the Americas, and they've caused extensive losses in both domestic and wild populations. So it's a serious, serious threat. Both viruses, or all strains and both serotypes of the virus, are extremely contagious, and they can spread a variety of ways, from rabbit to rabbit via direct contact, through fomites such as equipment, tools, enclosures, via insects, birds, scavenging mammals. The list goes on. And it's really controlled, the disease, and prevented through strict biosecurity measures and health management of domestic rabbits. But once the disease is detected, eradication can really only be accomplished by depopulation, cleaning, and disinfection, and surveillance and quarantines of those domestic rabbits. So you can imagine that if this disease emerges in wild populations, eradication is going to become nearly impossible. So it's really of utmost importance that the Game Commission take proactive measures in this concern. So I think in areas like Pennsylvania, where they're unaffected or uninfected at the time, prevention really must be the top priority. So those preventive strategies could include anything from educating permittees and the general public about the virus and wildlife health implications, providing precautionary guidelines and recommendations, restricting the importation of wildlife or wildlife parts from endemic areas, and conducting extensive disease surveillance. I do want to point out, though, that due to its foreign animal disease status, we coordinate our surveillance efforts closely with the Department of Ag and USDA. But should there be any detections because of that foreign animal disease status, we will play a more collaborative role and less of a leadership role in the response, because that response, since it's a foreign animal disease, is led by USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services. So just wanted to point that out. Anyway, with all of this in mind, we really felt that a more comprehensive regulation that can be applied to any number of wildlife diseases would really provide the executive director with firmer legal footing to issue and enforce executive orders or pursue additional regulations should wildlife diseases other than CWD threaten human, domestic and wild animal, and environmental health and safety within the Commonwealth. And what's nice is that while executive orders addressing RHD may be issued prior to acceptance of any revisions to 137.34, the regulatory revisions suggested herein really lay the groundwork for the Game Commission to robustly respond to emerging wildlife disease concerns that often appear with little to no warning. So as much as we are focused on RHD at the moment, updating this regulation is going to prepare us for the future. So now jumping to the specifics, right? What are we exactly proposing in these revisions? Well, for starters, we're interested in changing the title, right? From chronic wasting disease to wildlife disease in general, with the thought that being more inclusive and comprehensive will get us more prepared for the future. Areas of significant change include addressing the addressing of exportation restrictions, as well as the suspension or modification of existing permits. The current regulation only prohibited importation of high-risk parts and the issuance of new permits. So that's the reasoning for those changes that I just mentioned. We also made sure to address that the emergency authority didn't extend to the unilateral regulation of wildlife that's under federal jurisdiction. And really beyond that, the remaining changes removed language that was specific to cervids and provided clarifications as needed. They really were not super significant beyond those mentioned changes. And I do want to point out that all of this and all of these proposed revisions, does not compromise 137.35 chronic waste and disease restrictions that Andrea Korman will talk about. And it really also sets the stage for the development of additional disease-specific regulations similar to 137.35, whether it's something focused on RHD or white nose syndrome or any other emerging wildlife disease. So I've gone over the changes, and I just wanted to briefly touch on who may be impacted by those changes. So in addition to redefining the emergency authority of the executive director when it comes to wildlife disease, the proposed revisions may impact wildlife viewers, hunters, and game commission permittees. Included in the proposed revisions are importation and exportation restrictions, mandatory testing or disposal of wildlife or wildlife parts, restrictions on the movement of wildlife or wildlife parts, prohibition of rehabilitation of wildlife species, prohibition of feeding of wildlife, restricting the use of or possession of wildlife products, and restrictions on the issuance of new permits or suspension or modification of existing permits. So just to use rabbit hemorrhagic disease as an example, the impacts could extend to permittees for agriculture damage depredation, falconry, field dog trials, fur dealer, menagerie, nuisance wildlife control operator, propagating, rabbit trapping, and wildlife rehabilitation. But to be honest, the true impacts are completely dependent on the disease and the subsequent focus of any potential executive orders or additional regulations that are pursued. And that about wraps it up. I really appreciate all of your time. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very, very much.
Are there any questions from the board? If there are no questions, let's move to the next report.
All righty. Next up is Andrea Korman with some information on regulations with chronic wasting disease.
Hi, I'm Andrea Korman, the chronic wasting disease biologist for the Game Commission, and I'm going to provide an overview of the proposed revisions to Regulation 137.35 that are based on strategies described in the CWD response plan. The CWD response plan was accepted at the July 2020 Commission meeting. The plan proposed changes to regulations that would apply to Section 137.35. So these changes include defining the established area and implementing a ban on the export of high-risk parts from this area. Since the established area has a higher degree of infection compared to other areas, a ban on exporting high-risk parts from this area will help minimize the risk of human-assisted spread of the disease to less infected areas of the DMA. Creating a regulatory definition of the established area is also necessary for enforcement of this ban. The second regulation change proposed in the response plan is to expand the ban on the importation of high-risk parts to all areas outside the Commonwealth. Currently, the ban only applies to states and provinces that have detected CWD, but CWD surveillance efforts vary by region, and a lack of CWD detections does not necessarily equate to CWD-free cervid populations. So in order to be most effective, it is proposed that this regulation be expanded to all areas outside the Commonwealth. Implementation of these regulations will be an important step forward in CWD management. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board? If there are none, we'll move on with the next report.
All right, the next report is coming from the Bureau of Automated Technology.
Good morning. My name is Deana Vance, and I am the Director for the Bureau of Automated Technology Services here at the Game Commission. We were directed by the board at our July meeting to explore alternatives to the current antlerless sales process. Our current process has been in place for many years, and we know that breaking with tradition can sometimes be challenging, but we believe that modernizing license sales can provide a benefit to everyone involved. So I'm here to give an overview of some of the alternative methods that we discussed to our antlerless licensing sales process. And I'm going to start with giving an overview of what our current process looks like. And just to let everybody know, our process that we have in place now is governed by Title 34. So any change to this process will require legislative action. Our current process is handled exclusively through the county treasurer offices. They use our automated licensing service, which I'll refer to as PALS. Our current process contains a multi-round process with personal limits and quotas that are in place. And what that basically means is, depending on the wildlife management unit that you're hunting in, there is a limit on how many antlerless licenses you may have in those units. And the quotas refer to the allocations that are set aside for the number of antlerless licenses available in each wildlife management unit. Our process does combine both mail-in applications and over-the-counter sales, meaning throughout some of the first couple of rounds, we only accept a mail-in application, and then any unsold licenses then become available over the counter. When a customer buys their license in mid-June, they receive their application with their license. They complete that application, which includes their preferences for wildlife management unit and their payment, and then they mail that application in at designated times throughout the whole round process. Beginning on the first day of each round, applications are manually entered into our PAL system by county treasurer staff, and then they issue the antlerless licenses to customers based on those preferences that were indicated on the application. Now, mid-June is when general license sales typically open, and we don't begin our antlerless rounds until usually the second Monday in July. That extra time is given so that hunters have that time to purchase their license in June or early July, and then get those applications in the mail so that those county treasurers receive them on that second Monday in July for the first round. These licenses are issued in the PAL system by the county treasurers based on a first-come, first-served process now. When an application was successful and the transaction goes through, the county treasurer prints that license, and then those are mailed back out to the customer in the return envelope that was included with their application. If for some reason the application was unsuccessful, then payment is returned to the customer. And then that process continues repeating for each of the successive rounds. Later in the process, we do open over-the-counter sales, for any unsold licenses, which basically means that the hunter can walk into any county treasurer office and just buy one over the counter, and it would get printed and handed to them. Our personal limit of 3 applies to any wildlife management outside of special regulation areas. Special regulation areas are those areas around Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So if you are hunting anywhere other than those areas, you may only possess 3 antlerless licenses in those WMUs. But if you are hunting in special regulation areas, you are allowed an unlimited amount of antlerless licenses in those areas. One of our other existing rules is that non-residents are not allowed to apply the first week that round one opens. They must wait a week, which gives resident hunters a week it gives county treasurers a full week to process resident applications before they begin processing non-resident applications. As we started analyzing our process, we wanted to look at what customer service issues we have with this process. And we do realize that this is an outdated process, especially in this day and age when people are used to doing a lot of services online. They're used to a more streamlined approach. It is very cumbersome when you look at our process and see the application process, the envelope, the fact that you have to get it mailed on an exact day so that the county treasurer doesn't receive it prior to that second Monday in July. And there are a lot of reasons that a hunter might drop his envelope in the mailbox and expect that he's going to get, or that they're going to get their antlerless license back, and then they don't. And one of the big problems is they don't even realize that there was an issue with their application. And I listed some of the more common problems that happen with the applications, such as an insufficient return postage, envelopes get torn, they get damaged, they get misrouted by the Postal Service, hunters can mail them in too early, that maybe they forgot to put their check in the envelope, they didn't complete the envelope correctly. There's a lot of reasons why those applications just get thrown into what we call a dead letter file. And like I said, it's a very unforgiving process because the hunter drops that application in the mailbox, expecting that in a week or two they'll receive their license in the mail, and then they don't. They receive their application returned to them, with a message saying it was not processed. So can the process be improved? Staff was directed in July by President Fox to take a look at alternative methods to improve our sales process. What we did is we formed an internal committee, which contained many. We had at least 15 people on our committee, and it was comprised of members of our executive office team, some of our senior staff, different bureau directors, different region directors. We had members of our DEER team. We had IT represented. Our licensing division was well represented, as well as our marketing and our information and education areas. What we tried to do is analyze our current process to identify the existing problems, look at some of the complaints that we were getting from hunters around our existing process. We wanted to try to define goals for a new process. Some of the things we did is research what other states are doing. We also consulted with our licensed sales vendor to make sure that any process we looked at would be able to be handled through our automated licensing system. It came down to basically two different models that we liked, one being a true first-come, first-served process, and the other being a lottery-based model. So what I'll do is talk through some of the benefits and the potential limitations of both of these. We'll talk about the first come, first served process first. There are some benefits associated with this type of thing. One of the biggest things, of course, is there's no application and there's no official envelope needed in this type of a model. Customers would basically go to the store or go online, and when they bought their general hunting license at the beginning of the year, they would be able to just go right ahead and buy their antlerless license at the same time for the first round. Our license system would provide the immediate sale of that antlerless license in the WMU of the hunter's choice based on availability. And it seems to simplify the process, which was one of our top goals. It just provides that one-stop shopping. if the customer wants to go online or just go to the store and get their license, they can get their antlerless license. And for some hunters, then they're done. Now, if you want to buy more than one antlerless license, of course, you know, you will have to participate in those other rounds as, you know, they occur. Some of the limitations around a process like this, obviously the first thing that people think of is the potential long lines at some of the stores and the license sales locations. We worry, of course, about our online system with bandwidth, you know, with bandwidth surges beyond normal or seasonal activity. With all of those hunters, we wouldn't know how many to expect, you know, of hunters that would try to get online right away on opening day, and you know, we would need to mitigate that, of course. And of course, there is that customer concern around a system like this regarding license availability. The worry from the customers that if they don't get to the store on the first day, or if they don't get online the first day, that maybe the wildlife management unit that is their preference will get sold out. There would need to be a lot of public relations around the new process to assure hunters that we don't sell out the first hour of license sales. We have a lot of data over the last few years that does support the fact that most WMUs do not sell out even within the first round. So we'll talk about a lottery-based model next. Some of the benefits around this, you know, I think a lot of hunters who hunt out of state are used to a process where there is an application process and you mail it in with your application fee, and it could be several months even until the actual lottery is held by that state, and then you're notified on whether you are awarded a license or not. That doesn't seem to compare equally with what our process is for antlerless license sales, since we have so many licenses and we have multiple rounds. It's not quite that same type of a comparison. So, but one of the things that is definitely a benefit here is that it provides an equal process that allows customers to apply when it's convenient for them. You know, when we talked about the first come, first serve process, people will have that feel that sense of urgency to hurry up and get to the store on opening day, or get online opening day, to make sure that they get the licenses that they want. Whereas if we have an application process, there would be that time frame, again, similar to what our current system does, where you would be able to, you know, we would have opening license sales day, and then there would be that application period where you would have a certain amount of time to submit your application and your payment before that lottery was held. So it does remove some of those external elements that affect a person's ability to apply for a license, where, you know, if they have a job where they work during business hours and they're unable to get on the internet, or they're unable to get to a store in those, you know, first few days, it removes some of that concern. Some of the limitations that we discovered is well, like I said, it would involve an application for each round. And if you're applying, there would likely be an application fee with each one of those if we're going to do the lottery within our PAL system. We felt it would be an inconvenience for those who don't want to purchase online. It would mean multiple trips to the agent location. You know, if you do the trip to buy your general hunting license and you get your application for the first round, and then you submit it, and then you go back and you get your application and submit it for the second one, and then you have to go pick up your license after you've found out that you've been awarded or you've been issued it. Some states when we looked at some of the other states, we see that they use preference points and probability models, which does add a level of complexity to a process like this. And one of our main goals as we looked at this was to make, you know, if we were going to recommend something, we wanted it to be a simple system. We wanted to remove some of those cumbersome and complex parts that we currently have. And then, like I said, you know, as we looked at some of the other states and how they did lotteries, it just didn't seem to compare to the volume that we have here in Pennsylvania with antlerless licensed sales and the round structures that we currently have in place. Some of the other things we talked through throughout our discussions was whether we should open antlerless licensed sales the same day as general licenses become available, which means basically, like I said, general licenses open in mid-June. And so do we just open antlerless license sales on that same day, or do we stagger those as we do now? But staff would recommend that we would open antlerless license sales on the same day as general licenses become available. We prefer to keep the same type of round structure that we have so that it gives people plenty of time between round 1 and round 2 and round 3, and then over the counter sales, you know, to make sure that everybody has ample time to you know, buy their licenses in each round. We would also recommend that non-residents be able to begin buying in round 1 on opening day, the same as residents. The personal limit that I talked about in wildlife management units outside of special regulation areas, we would recommend expanding that to more than 3. We don't want to prevent the over-the-counter sale of those additional unsold licenses in October if they're still available. We currently have several management units that once we get to the over-the-counter round are available, but many hunters have already purchased 3. So sometimes those licenses continue to remain unsold. We would like to be able to sell those if there are still some available. In the special regulation areas, one of the changes we talked about was to potentially limit the active antlerless licenses you have in your possession to 5, with the option to purchase more as you fill those tags. So if you have 5 in a special regulation management unit and you fill a couple of those tags, as you fill your tags and report those deer, then the system would allow you to go buy more in those special reg areas. So after the hours of discussion that we had around all of these things, all of the benefits, all the limitations, all the talking about what could potentially be better for our customers, or you know, what are the other states doing, all of those things, we decided that given a change in Title 34 regarding our antlerless license sales process, that we would recommend pursuing a first come, first serve model, knowing that of course we can't pursue this until there is legislative action. But that wraps up what our discussions, you know, what the content of our discussions were, and you know, the overview of what the alternative methods were for what we talked about. And I don't really have anything else, and I just want to thank everybody for listening, and that's it. Thank you.
I have a question. Currently, the only way that we can pay for an antlerless license is with a check or a money order. With this system, would an applicant be able to pay with a credit card or a debit card?
Looks like Deana might be having trouble with her mic. I'm not sure.
while we're waiting for Deana to come on, I just like to point out and remind everyone that this is a legislative issue, and as much as the Board of Game Commissioners would like to change the process, we are limited by Title 34, and until the legislature takes up legislation to change that, we won't be able to implement any changes.
Go ahead, you're live.
Okay. Hi, sorry, my mic wasn't working. I ran over to someone else's computer. Okay, the question was whether you would be able to use a credit card. So yes, either purchasing online or through a licensed sales location, you would be able to use a credit card for an antlerless license in the new system.
One of the issues that I became aware of is there are many of our young folks that simply do not have a checking account, or they have to go to their parents to borrow a check. So it becomes difficult for them to apply unless they go somewhere and get a money order. So that was a concern that was expressed to me. Are there any other questions from the board? If not, at this time we'll move on to the formal agenda. Okay, at this time I'd like to call this meeting of the Pennsylvania Game Commission to order. Commissioner Mittrick, will you please call the roll?
I will, President Fox. President Fox.
Yes.
Commissioner Nick.
Here.
Commissioner Mittrick here. Commissioner Foradora.
Here.
Commissioner Fredericks.
Here.
Commissioner Fredericks.
Here.
Commissioner Hoover.
Here.
Commissioner Layton.
Here.
Commissioner Schnepp-Geiger.
Here.
All are present, Commissioner Fox.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the minutes for the commission meeting held July 25th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to accept those. Hoover.
Second.
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 Is there any opposition? If not, we'll move on. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Bechtel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item from our agenda is from the Bureau of Wildlife Management. It concerns proposed rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code, sections 137.34 and 137.35. Section 137.34, relating to chronic wasting disease and emergency authority of the director, currently addresses only the emergency authority of the Pennsylvania Game Commission Executive Director as it pertains to chronic wasting disease, or CWD. This section does not address matters of any other diseases or the impacts of these diseases on other species of wildlife. The Commission has determined that a more comprehensive regulation capable of application to any number of wildlife diseases would provide the Executive Director with the necessary authority and flexibility to respond to additional wildlife diseases other than CWD that threaten human, domestic, and wild animal or environmental health and safety within the Commonwealth. The need for expanding existing regulatory language was recently recognized as a result of the ongoing rabbit hemorrhagic disease, or RHD, outbreak in the southwestern United States. The Commission is proposing to amend sections 137.34 and 137.35 to expand the authority of the Executive Director to issue executive orders to address additional diseases and species of wildlife other than only CWD as it relates to only cervids. The Commission is also proposing to amend section 137.35 to define the term established area, restrict the movement of high-risk parts outside from established areas, and further expand the ban on importation of high-risk parts to all areas outside the Commonwealth. These changes reflect the strategies described in the recently accepted CWD response plan. The text is shown on pages 2 through 6 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Hoover.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Knick.
Any discussion? Commissioner Metrick, would you call the roll, please?
I will.
Call the
Commissioner
vote?
Fox,
Yes.
Commissioner Knick, Commissioner Metrick, yes. Commissioner Fordora,
Yes.
Commissioner Fredericks, Commissioner Fredericks,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoover,
Yes.
Commissioner Layton,
Yes.
Commissioner Schnepp Geiger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And the next item before the commission is also from the Bureau of Wildlife Management. It concerns adopted rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code Section 147.746 relating to exceptions for resident Canada geese to align state level regulations with recent federal amendments to depredation orders. Depredation orders for resident Canada geese were established in federal and state regulations in 2006 and have been successful in providing affected individuals and businesses with methods to reduce goose-related damage and conflicts, especially in situations where recreational hunting is impractical or insufficient for population control. The text of these rulemaking is shown on pages 8 and 9 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Commissioner Knick.
Second?
Second, Brian Hoover.
Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion carried.
And the next item on the agenda today is from the Bureau of Wildlife Protection. It concerns adopted rulemaking to amend 58 PA Code Section 141.18 relating to permitted devices to authorize the use of handheld and firearm-mounted night vision and infrared or thermal optics used solely for fur bearer hunting. The text is shown on page 11 of your agenda.
Do we have a motion?
Commissioner
So
Knick,
moved,
so
Hoover.
moved.
Second?
Schnepp Geiger, second.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, Mr. President, it's Commissioner Layton. I don't know if Bureau Director Dukoski is available, but I think there have been some changes to the language of this.
Yes, Commissioner Layton, I'm available.
Can you just explain? I understand that there was some changes to the language, just for cleaning up purposes.
Yeah, in the commentary part, we added the part about thermal, because the normal hunter or sportsman believes that thermal technology is quite different than infrared technology, and to keep it in a layman's terms, infrared technology is used in thermal technologies. Therefore, you wouldn't have thermal without infrared. That's why we kept with the same language with the infrared optics versus saying thermal, because they're the same technology. It's just what's out there to the general public and what they believe is thermal is the same thing as infrared. You need infrared in order to detect thermal images.
Very.
So that's the only change that we added to is the commentary, where we added thermal in there versus the actual regulation.
Very good. I just wanted you to clarify that for us. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that.
I just want to point out that this is one of the opportunities where the commission has listened to the hunter and to the public, and has gone out and made changes based on the comments that we received. So we wanted the hunters that were out there to understand that, you know, the commission does listen, and this is what comes from it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Mitchell, would you call the roll, please?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Opposed? Yep. All right.
So the next item that would come before the commission today comes from the Bureau of Wildlife Habitat Management. It concerns real estate and the donation of real estate. Contract number L3771, State Game Land number 55, Columbia County. Regency Marcellus Gas Gathering, LLC, or Regency, is offering to donate 75 more or less acres of land in North Center Township, Columbia County, adjoining State Game Land number 55, as shown on Exhibit Red 1 on page 14 of any of the agendas you may have. Regency offered to donate the land as replacement habitat to mitigate for lost wildlife resources and recreational values associated with construction and maintenance activities, associated with the issuance of licenses for right-of-way for natural gas pipelines and appurtenances on State Game Lands number 12 in Sullivan and Bradford counties. Access is from Fester's Lane Access Road off of SR 1012 Mountain Road.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Brian Hoover.
Second?
Second, Tim Layton.
Mitchell, second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that?
Denny
Any
Fredericks,
questions?
I have a question, Mr. President. Is anybody able to answer what the exchange rate on this was? Look, looks like we got 75 plus or minus acres, but in exchange for how many disturbed? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Yes, Mr. Fredericks, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So this is actually in addition to a parcel that we acquired at an earlier commission meeting. So that was 154 acres, this additional 75 acres. Total impacts were between 40 and 50 permanent impacts to the acres of permanent impact to the game lands. However, all of that habitat has been restored just in a little different state than it was before. It was kind of converted from forest to grassland, and it is quite the mosaic up on game lands 12 and 36 at this point. So doing the math there, we're not quite at 5-1, but we're a little better than 4-1. And I just want to add, that this is enhanced mitigation. This is above and beyond what our normal rates would have been. The commission gave up, nothing to acquire these properties. This was all negotiated with the company through regional staff and staff in Harrisburg as an enhancement to the already, the financial end of things with regard to that right of way.
Thank you, Pete. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Want to call the vote, Commissioner Midrick?
Yes. Do I hear any nays?
You say nay?
The motion carries.
Okay.
Sleepy.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda appears on page 15 of your agenda. It's contract number L3772, State Game Land number 219, Bradford County. The Conservation Fund is offering to donate 139 more or less acres of land in Warren Township, Bradford County, adjoining State Game Land number 219, as shown on Exhibit Red 2 on page 16 of the agendas. The Conservation Fund, acting as a conservation agent, is acquiring the property with funding provided by Williams Companies for voluntary mitigation as a result of impacts associated with the Constitution Pipeline Project located in Susquehanna County. Access is from Caddis Road.
Do we have a motion on that?
So moved, Commissioner Knick.
Second?
Second, Denny Fredericks.
Any discussion?
Second, Commissioner Mitchell.
Discussion? Denny, did I hear you come in?
No, I'm good, Charlie. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Midrick, you want to call the vote?
Yes. Do I hear any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you. And the next item is on page 17 of your agenda. It's contract number L3773, State Game Land number 156 in Lebanon County. The estate of Daniel R. Blau is offering to donate 2.67 more or less acres of land in South Lebanon Township, Lebanon County, adjoining State Game Land number 156, as shown on Exhibit Red 3 on page 18 of the agendas. Access is from existing State Game Land number 156.
Do we have a motion on that?
So moved, Hoover.
Do we have a second? Yep.
Metric, second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President, this is Pete Sussenbach. May I just add a few things?
Absolutely.
I just want to say that, acquiring any land in the Southeast region is a challenge at times. And this is just an exciting opportunity for us. Although it's small acreage, it protects the ultimate integrity and future of that section of game lands. We're just excited to see this donation. The previous donation, I had some technical difficulty there, but our partners over at the Conservation Fund were instrumental in that previous proposal as well. And this one to see that a private individual was actually thinking about us, or individuals at this point, and considering the Game Commission as a donation to us is pretty exciting and greatly appreciated. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. Commissioner Midrick, you want to call the vote?
Do I hear any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes.
And the next item before the commission is on page 19 of your agenda. It's contract number L3774, State Game Land number 264 in Dauphin County. Dauphin County is offering to donate any and all of the interest they may have in a 0.36 more or less acre of land parcel in Wickinesco Township, Dauphin County, an interior within State Game Land number 264. This is shown on Exhibit Red 4 on page 20 of your agenda. This is the same tract of land that was offered as a donation from Ladnar Inc. under contract L3735. After an examination of Ladnar's title, it was determined that Dauphin County may also have an interest in the land. Access is from existing State Game Land number 264.
Do we have a motion on that?
Denny Fredericks, so
Commissioner
moved.
Knick, so moved.
Second?
Denny
Any
Fredericks,
discussion?
second.
Richard, call the vote, please.
Do I hear any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay.
And the next item concerns an acquisition. It's on page 21 of your agenda. It's contract number L3775, State Game Land number 170 in Perry and Cumberland counties. The Nature Conservancy is offering 213.5 more or less acres of land in 5 tax parcels. The 3 northern tax parcels are located in Penn Township, Perry County, and adjoin State Game Land number 170, as shown on Exhibit Red 5 on page 22 of your agenda. The two southern tax parcels are located south of State Game Land Number 170 in East Pennsboro and Hampton Townships, Cumberland County. The option price is $213,000 lump sum to be paid with funds from third-party commitments for compensation of habitat and recreational losses which occurred on state game lands from previously approved projects. The Nature Conservancy has applied for grant funding through the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and if successfully awarded, covenants, conditions, and restrictions associated with this funding source will be required to accept the property. Access for the three northern parcels is from existing state game land number 170. The two southern parcels are landlocked.
Do we have a motion on that?
Danny Frederick, so moved.
Second?
Commissioner Mitrick, second.
Is there any opposition? Any discussion?
Mr. President, this is Pete Sussenbach again, if I can just add a few things.
Yep.
I just want to thank the Nature Conservancy and our folks at the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for working with us through this process. Although it's not a finalized deal quite yet, even after the pending approval. There's still some logistics we've got to work through. They are going out of their way to make this happen and work with the Pennsylvania Game Commission in moving this land to us should it be approved. So pretty exciting opportunity, and the $213,000 lump sum, I got to tell you, is really a fraction of what the appraised value came in at. So it's quite the acquisition in a place of, and if you look at the map, there's quite a bit of commercial and residential properties just to the south of there. So it will be heavily used. We're convinced of that by the hunting public. So we're pretty excited about it.
Okay.
Mr. President, it's Denny Fredericks. To add to the discussion, I would like to once again, and I will continue to do so, is point out these significant land acquisitions that we get from private donors and conservation partners. Again, just to reiterate that the thought being out there that hunters and hunting licenses pay for all these game lands, again, just to make a point of discussion and bring to everybody's attention that the amount of acreage that we receive through partnerships and donations privately and otherwise are extremely significant. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this? We'll move on.
Yes, the next item is from the Oil, Gas, and Mineral Division. It shows on page 23 of your agenda and concerns a coal refuse reclamation agreement, tract 79A-20, Blacklick Township, Cambria County. Robindale Energy Services, Inc., or RES, of Armagh, Pennsylvania, has requested an agreement to mine and remove an estimated 10,000 to 15,000 tons of economically recoverable coal refuse material within approximately 4.6 acres of state game land number 79. The area is shown on exhibit OGM1 on page 24 of your agenda. The Game Commission owns the surface and surface support rights, and coal refuse are conveyed with the property. The coal refuse removal and reclamation would be part of an overall larger project involving coal refuse removal on adjacent private lands. The state game land portion of the project will include on-site demolition, burial, cover, and grading of remnants of an existing abandoned mine-related building by RES. Removal of the coal refuse and elimination of the abandoned building structure will restore the area to a more natural state and result in improved water quality in Coal Pit Run and improved wildlife habitat. The terms are a 5-year agreement and a royalty rate of 25 cents per ton of coal refuse removed from the state game land. Additional value will be realized through reclaiming the abandoned building structure area and restoring to useful wildlife habitat. All coal refuse royalty payments will be deposited in the game fund. Mining will be regulated by the Commonwealth's mining regulations and the Commission's coal refuse reclamation agreement.
Give a motion on that.
Foradora motion.
Second.
Danny Frederick, second.
Is there any opposition?
Mr. President, I have a question. This is Commissioner Layton. So Pete, if you could just touch on this a little bit. I know that State Game Land 79 has been mined now for an extremely long amount of time. Is this part of that continued mining that's going on there? Is this a different project? What is this all about?
Yeah, this is an entirely different project. This is cleaning up basically a bunch of the refuse material from, mining from long ago. So at the end of the day, once this coal material is removed, that 4.6 acres should be restored to something pretty nice, probably a nice addition to some of the grasslands that already exist out there.
So is this area is not adjacent to what's being mined now? This is, if I'm seeing this correctly, this is across the hard road from that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And basically it's removal of existing spoil piles, which provide, honestly, very limited to no wildlife benefit.
Gotcha, thanks, Pete.
Any other discussion? Is there any opposition? Okay. Any other new business?
I just wanted to take the opportunity.
Okay, we have one more individual that needs to be recognized. I'd like to take a minute to thank Commissioner Brian Hoover for his service to the Pennsylvania Game Commission and the citizens of this Commonwealth. Commissioner Hoover was appointed and confirmed to the board June of 2012, and it will be his final board meeting. On behalf of the entire board, thank you, Brian, for your hard work over the years.
Thank you, President Fox. I do want to take a moment to thank the staff. It's been a great 8 years. I've had the opportunity to do a tremendous amount of work and see many things that I would never have been able to see as just a hunter. And I want to thank the staff, because the staff, I think we have assembled probably the greatest staff in the country to work on hunting related items and to control the state of Pennsylvania. And this agency is the best. And I want to thank the commissioners that I've worked with and had the opportunity to work with over the last 8 years. And yes, this is my last official meeting as a commissioner as I retire from my 8-year term. I want to again thank everyone for all the positive work and the things that I've learned. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Fox, President Fox.
Yes.
This is Brian Burhans. If I could just say a few words, I just want to thank Commissioner Hoover for everything done. I've been here for now going on 7 years, and Commissioner Hoover's been there. He's been served as president. He has been active and engaged in all the activities of the commission. He has been a great support mentor for me, has taught me a lot. I'm just ever so grateful for his service as a commissioner, what he means to staff and the wildlife resource. So Commissioner Hoover, thank you so much for your service. It is greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, just for a second, please. Brian, I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure serving the board with you. I'm honored to call you a colleague and a friend. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to rely on you for my last year for guidance moving forward. And I just think as I look back and see all the things that you helped accomplish as a commissioner, you have helped drive this agency to where it is today, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to echo those comments and simply say it's been a great ride. Thank you. Under new business, the board was previously presented a draft of the 2023 strategic plan. At this time, I'd like to ask the board to approve this new strategic plan. Commissioner Metrick, do we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
So move, Mr. Knick. Commissioner Knick.
Second?
Second, Denny Fredericks.
Any discussion on that?
Commissioner,
Commissioner Metrick, would you call the roll?
yes. Are there any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Mr. President, we really didn't get a chance to comment on that. Can I just say, I want to thank the staff for all the work they put in to the strategic plan. It's not an easy task, and they got a lot accomplished in a short amount of time. And kudos goes out to Executive Director Burhands and his staff for taking care of this and getting it done.
Any other new business from the commissioners? Okay, the next commission meeting will be held on January 22, 2021 here in Harrisburg. Do I have an motion to adjourn?
So moved, Commissioner Metrick.
Second, Commissioner Hoover.
That adjourns this meeting.
That concludes our meeting today. Again, this session has been recorded and we expect it to be uploaded to the Game Commission's YouTube channel early next week. On behalf of the board, the executive office, and the rest of the staff, we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your weekend to join us. And we hope you're able to get outside and enjoy some of Pennsylvania's great outdoors.